From India to Akron, Ohio to Burlington, Vermont to building one of the most successful software companies. Don't miss today's story. It will inspire you and you'll learn how to delegate. Welcome to Decision Points. I'm Doug Hudson.
I'm Scott Wood.
And welcome Kishore Khandavalli. You are the CEO of whatever you want to be the CEO of right now.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here, Doug.
Yeah.
Good to be here, Scott.
Yeah, Kishore, thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
What's going on in your world these days?
Well, it's a crazy world out there in the business world. So trying to be creative in drumming up the business and maintaining the business and keeping the people. There's a whole lot of gamut going on in the business world right now.
Yeah. Why? Let's just jump in there for a second. Why is it so crazy from your perspective?
Well, the space that I'm in, IT services business, it went through a slowdown last year.
It did?
And substantial slowdown, actually. I haven't seen that kind of slowdown since 2008.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a combination. People were nervous about the high interest rates and global economy. And, there was demand for what we did and what we do, but people were not ready to pull the trigger, if you will. So they're
like calling you, Kishore, we're going to place this order or we're going to do this, but yeah, interesting.
Since the middle of last year, like June, July timeframe, we're going to do it, but we're going to do it first quarter of next year, second quarter of next year. So they're pushing everything out 6, 9, 12 months.
Yeah. Are you starting to get those phone calls now?
Yes. Yeah. We have seen an uptick of the business since December. Actually, believe it or not, December is usually a quiet month, but we've seen the calls, the phone's ringing, and it's like, hey, we want to get started. So it's still picking up, slower than what I would want.
Yeah.
But I think the second quarter is going to be a very busy quarter.
So Kishore, tell our audience what your business is so that when they hear slowdown in IT services, they kind of know exactly what that is.
I do 3 different things in the IT services space, and I do it under 3 different umbrellas, starting from really the high-end software development, for example, AI implementations, machine learning, digital transformation. That's really the high end. And the middle is really the grunt software development work under consulting. A client says, I want some software to be developed, custom to them, and we go develop it for them. And the other end, is the lower end, I call it, is really offshore software development. The grunt work, the data cleanup, data mapping, and all of that. So I operate under those 3 banners in end-to-end IT services.
And so are all 3 businesses slower, or is one, more slow than the other?
Our offshore didn't get any slower last year because people were nervous and they were sending more stuff offshore for cost reduction.
Yeah.
And it's funny, different business sectors tend to follow different cycles. Our digital transformation AI picked up in December. And, it was this year, we're going to have a banner year. We already, by the end of March, we would have booked all our revenue for 24 that we projected.
Wow.
So, but the consulting piece is a little bit slower to come back up.
So is the revenue for the high end that'll be booked by the end of March, is there some pent up demand from last year that now is making that, or is it all new stuff?
No, it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
The first part is, yes, there was some business from last year. We didn't make our numbers last year, pushed into this year. Yeah. But thanks to ChatGPT, everyone wants to implement AI now. So there's a lot of new opportunities that is coming up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, the economy is interesting right now. If you think about it, and even last year, like certain sectors like real estate were, if you talk to real estate people, it was decimated. Other industries kind of moved along and, didn't really feel. Were there certain industries that you guys work in, specific sectors that were particularly hit hard, or is just really it was an across the board kind of thing?
It was across the board.
Yeah.
But certain sector, retail seemed to do pretty good last year.
Yeah.
And because if you look at the general numbers, retail was fairly good for most of the year. So retail we didn't see a slowdown, but like you mentioned, unorthodox industries for our space, like construction.
Yeah.
They want to come and talk about AI. They don't talk about software usually.
Yeah.
They're very old school and they want manual stuff. They're the ones that start calling us like, we want to do AI implementations because ChatGPT opened the doors for us. We didn't have to sell AI. They all want
Interesting.
AI.
Yeah, they almost skipped a whole phase of the digital transformation.
Correct. Yeah. So I give the example of China going from no landlines to directly to cell phones. That's what legal and construction industries are doing that right now.
So give us an example of an AI implementation for one of your customers, just so that we can understand better what you guys do.
Sure. One example, we developed an AI software internally for this as a platform. So when you build a big building, like 10-story, 20-story building, they have so many CAD drawings. And halfway through the design, you want to change something, right? And when you come up with new drawings, new designs, the AI software automatically picks up what are the things that you missed. What are the things that are out of compliance with code? It automatically picks up, compares to the database and the drawings and say, this is the area that you need to focus on.
Interesting.
And that way no engineer has to manually do it, but even if they do it, they miss it.
It's predicting and identifying those out of compliance or changes. And then a person, an architect or an engineer would redo it, but they don't have to go hunt for the problem.
Correct, yeah. So it would compare the previous drawing to the new drawing versus what are you trying to do, and compares to the code and compares to the database of how many people made mistakes in the past and corrects it. AI is basically 100 people working at the same time and 10 times faster.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Well, and that's one of the best analogies I've ever heard of it. The scale, 100 people working 10 times faster on the same thing.
Right. And then we developed a platform. For example, there's another client comes in and say, hey, we have a construction company, 70-year-old construction company. We have 1.5 million CAD drawings sitting in the warehouse, and we want to know where it is what. The building is still there. So, and now through AI and machine learning, we digitize all of those and get it out of the warehouse and scan it. And now they exactly know if they want to go to the 10th floor of a building that they built in 1975, the drawing is right there digitally, right? So that's digitizing. It wasn't possible before AI. Manually, it would take years for you to do it, but now it's in a month. We'll digitize everything. Like a computer click, you can just learn, find out where it is.
I'm guessing that's the future for your 3 businesses. I mean, that's probably where the energy and the focus is and the biggest opportunity.
That's where the sexy stuff is.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's still a market for the other stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The core of the software is still there. And for example, I give you an example. Back in 2010, 2011, we were one of the companies that worked with a big 3 consulting company to digitize all online billing for Verizon Wireless. That was in 2010, 2012. That's not going away. It's still there, right? People still pay the bills automatically, auto-pay and all of that. That's the core software. But the innovation is the top layer. And the engine still has to be there.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Let's back up a little bit. Where are you from? Where were you raised?
Okay, I was born and raised in India. And I did my bachelor's in chemical engineering and worked for a refinery for about 18 months.
In India?
In India. And I got bored. Actually, I'll tell you a story.
We love stories.
Yeah, so I was recruited from the college and got into a petroleum refinery, pretty nice job at the time. And I was working about 12 months into the job. My manager called me into his cabin and said, I was 21, 22, and he was 30 maybe. And he said, Kishore, what the hell are you doing here? And I said, what do you mean? It's like, you seem to be a smart kid and you don't belong here. And I said, no, I thought this was one of the top echelons of jobs for a chemical engineer. And he said, yeah, it is, but you could do better. And he's my supervisor, my manager. And I thought he was going to fire me. And said, no. And finally he says, get the hell out. And I said, his name is Ram. And so, Ram, you're a smart guy. I look up to you. I said, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And he said, listen, how old are you? 22? And I'm 30. I'm married and I have a kid. I can't take all the chances that you can possibly take. Go take chances. Fail. You have an opportunity to bounce back. Get out. So, and then, when my manager that I looked up to said, get the hell out. And I was going to get out, but I didn't know what to do. So I thought, I did good and I got a great job. And so I said,
you did what you were supposed to do.
Yeah,
I did what I was supposed to do. And I was number 3 of the 4 sons. And my 2 older brothers are still in school. I was the first one to start earning. And I said, I'm going to buy some time. Actually, before that, I'm a chemical engineer, right? So I went to my dad. My dad was a business guy. He was pretty well off. And I went home and said, yeah, I want you to give me a bunch of money. So I want to start a chemical factory. And he was like, well, you're 22. You just graduated. If you want to do a chemical factory, find your own money. I'm not giving you any money. I paid for your education. You're on your own, buddy.
Yeah.
So, and then I went back, and a month later, I went back to my work, and a month later, I went back home. I said, I decided to go to U.S. And do my master's. By this time, I already accepted into really good master's programs in India. I didn't want to go there. I thought master's was a waste of time. And I said, I want to go to U.S., buy myself 2 years. And I think doing master's in the U.S. was probably worth the 2 years rather than doing it in India. I would learn something new. And but I decided to go there. I'm going to go there. And I said, would you lend me some money if I don't get scholarship into master's? He said, how much? I said, about $4,000. I just threw a number at it. He said, yes, as long as you pay back. And my dad was very clear. He was a business guy. It's like, my job was to get your education. After that, I'm not going to support you. You're out.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, I'll pay you back. So, and I applied for old school. I wrote in for an application from a bunch of schools, kind of shooting in the dark. I don't know which school was what. I didn't know anything about the U.S. This was in 1990. And I picked like random 8 schools. And, whichever school was willing to send an application for no fee. Back then, they're trying to...
There was an application fee.
Not even to send in an application, to mail the application to India, they charged like $10 or $15 or whatever. And it's like, I didn't want to pay that. And so
Cut into your $4,000.
Right. So I picked eight schools, applied to 8 of them. I got into 3. None of them offered a scholarship. And I got into Columbia University. I didn't know back then Columbia was Columbia.
Yep.
And University of Akron and Louisiana Tech University in Ruston.
Oh my gosh.
Those 3
most random schools.
Most random schools in chemical engineering and masters. And so I had $4,000. And by the time I had the conversation with my dad, 6 months passed, and the $4,000 became $3,000. I talked to him in rupees, and because of the exchange rate, these became $3,000. I was not going to go back and ask him, hey, why don't you give me?
Will you match it? Yeah.
And then I looked at the tuitions for the first semester. Columbia is $12,000 per semester. That's out. And Louisiana Tech is $3,000. Akron is $2,200 for 9 credits. Right? That's what I had to take. I said, Akron it is. So, and so I would have $3,000, and tuition is $2,200. I'll have $800 left. I'll figure out once I get there. So, sure enough, that's how I landed in Akron. And
no way.
The bottom line really made the decision. And so I get there to Akron, and they said, "Hey, by the way, we changed our policy for first-year graduate students coming from overseas. You got to take 12 credits, not 9. So there's going about 3,000. So on day 1, I landed in the U.S. I didn't have any money in my pocket. I paid everything for the tuition. And to rub salt on the wound, they'd say, well, had you come yesterday, we would have given you a full ride. And I said, what happened yesterday was, we had 1 scholarship left. There was 1 guy that came before you. It's first come, first serve. So,
wow.
So, but anyway, that's how I ended up in Akron. Did my master's, and So
How'd you live?
I wasn't going to go back to my dad and ask for more money. That was for sure. Yeah, I knew what the answer was going to be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
So I called a friend whose sister was living in Maryland at the time. I said, "Hey, I'm in a little bit of a situation, and can you help?" It's like, "Yeah, let me talk to my sister." She's been there for a while. It's like, "Yeah, sure. How much do you need?" "Give me like $2,000 for the semester," and that's how I bought her $2,000. And everything was banking on, by the end of first semester, second semester, I was going to get full ride. I didn't have a plan B. And I called Columbia. I said, "Hey, you got me into fall. I'm here in the U.S. Would you give me a scholarship? I'll come over to your school." They said, "No." I said, "Would you give me a scholarship in spring?" They said, "No." And the best we can do is we'll wait for a year for you. And I'll wait for next year. And after that, we're not going to wait. And I'm likely to get scholarship in Columbia. So I said, "Okay, all right." And so everything was, there was no plan B. So I had to get scholarship in spring, and fortunately I did.
And you did.
Yeah.
So you get your master's at Akron. That was 1 year, so it was
2 years. 2 years.
2 years. So you get a scholarship. And were you the first one in your family to come to the U.S.?
And why the U.S.? As you kind of look, as you were making and processing that decision, why the U.S.?
U.S. obviously was and is the most advanced country in the world. And I've always wanted to be on my own longer term, coming from a business family. And I used to watch my dad, and he had a lumber business, very traditional, but I used to watch him, how I used to go with him for sourcing the lumber into the forests and on all of that. So I liked how the whole thing was working. Yeah. So I knew I wanted to be in the business at some point. And so, and that's the whole idea of, well, if I'm going to go to US, I would know the latest developments in chemical engineering. Mm-hmm. And I could bring some of that and at least have a differentiator when I come back to India and set up my own chemical outfit.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing.
Yeah. That first semester in the fall, you're basically out of money because you paid it all towards tuition. How did you eat? Where did you live?
Yeah.
How did you get around? Like what was, how did you support yourself that first semester?
Those 2 years were the poorest years of my life.
Yeah.
Right. And I had a good upbringing. It wasn't truly a rags to riches story, but my dad was just this guy in a small village that I was brought up in. So I had everything that I asked for. I didn't have to ask for anything. Basically, just go get from a local store, and they'll send the bill to my dad, and that's that. Right. So, and but yeah, I borrowed money, a couple of thousand from my friend's sister, and that got me through the semester.
Yeah.
We were living 5 graduate students living in a house and paying $150 per month per room. And food budget at the time was $30 per week.
Yeah.
That's what I had to budget. So
And you were trained as an engineer, so you could figure all this out. It was all very
I'm not
linear.
very good with numbers, and you guys are the experts. But it's survival.
Yeah.
Survival mode.
Well, what's interesting about this part of the story, Kishore, is you were raised very differently, probably comfortably in India, and I think I reflect on my children, and our kids are all raised in a very affluent, comfortable setting, and the fact that I think about my own kids, would they be willing to go do what you did, like live off of $30 a week and share a house with 4 other grad students, and probably on top of each other, and probably not the nicest house in the neighborhood, and literally just kind of barely existing, other than your school. That's a really dramatic shift.
It is.
Most people who grew up comfortably wouldn't, that they won't sign up for that.
Yes, absolutely. There were moments during those 2 years, and I came away from all the family, and I would wake up in the middle of the night. Why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. Because next day I wouldn't have money to go buy groceries.
Yeah.
And as a foreign student, you're not allowed to work. You can't work because you don't have work permit.
Right.
So you are full-time student.
Right.
And
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I was about to ask you what you do for a job. You couldn't.
Yeah, you couldn't. So that was like, is it all worth it? Mm-hmm. Why am I doing it here?
Mm-hmm.
But, I was, right from the childhood, if I wanted to go get something, I'll figure out a way to get it.
Yeah.
And I said, my mantra and philosophy has always been, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I said, yep, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Whether it is this semester or next semester, and we'll figure it out.
And if Akron doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. Because I'm sure it kills a few people. And you had to go through a couple of winters there in Akron.
Yeah.
So,
well, the winters get worse.
Yeah. Does any of your other family end up coming to the U.S.?
Yeah, I have two other brothers that followed me. They came straight to work, not to study.
Yeah.
So
And they live here now?
They live here, and they both work with me at the moment.
Oh, no way.
So was there a moment? Was there a moment in the 2 years in Akron where you sort of crossed the threshold and you were like, okay, I'm good now. I'm gonna finish this. Like, was it the end of the second semester, or did that ever happen? And you just finished it and you got to graduation, and then you're like, thank goodness I'm done and I'm moving on.
Well, the life of a foreign student in the U.S. is very tough.
Yeah.
Because you're given with limitations. You can do this, you cannot do this.
Yeah.
Right? So I was not allowed to work. So I had to get scholarship, not just the tuition, but also the living expenses. Right. So fortunately, I got that, and they were paying me $600 a month or whatever. That's luxury.
Yeah, yeah.
So now I can actually.
But you had to perform to get that. I mean,
right. Correct.
You were earning this from the moment you got here.
Yeah, of all the things, my research assistantship was sponsored by NASA in Cleveland. So it was pretty cool work, and not a whole lot of work. I was able to focus on the studies, but I got a good ride for the rest of the 18 months.
Yep.
So and then when you get out of college, it gets worse, right? So because again, you're a foreign student, and you don't have work permit. They do kind of a 1-year work permit. And and I graduated in the middle of the recession, 93.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going into the next phase of the story.
Keep going.
Yeah, you're doing great.
So in the middle of the recession, back then you were printing resumes and mailing resumes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I remember I did about 500 of them, and nobody would respond. So finally, one small company out of Vermont, Burlington, Vermont, calls me and says, "Hey, are you available?" I said, "Sure, I am available." And I go there. I went from Akron to Burlington, Vermont. And you think Akron is small? Burlington, Vermont is smaller.
Yeah,
and colder. And colder, right? So, and I go there, interview him, and there was not much of an interview. It's a startup. One person started a company, DuPont chemical engineer. I have this creative idea I want to develop for the first time, and we filed for a patent, and we need an engineer to develop it. I said, "Why did you pick me?" And I'm a fresh graduate, and three reasons. Number one is you have some computer work background. I did some computer work back in college and at the refinery. So you have that. I think we are going to be useful. And number two, we're looking for a cheap engineer. A foreign student and with a fresh master's degree, it doesn't get any cheaper than that. I said, yeah, there's a point. But I ended up not getting the job after coming the interview. And after I kept calling, it's like, yeah, we hired somebody. And that went away. And a month and a half later, he called me again. I said, "Are you still available?" I said, "Sure I am." It's like, "You want to start?" I said, "Sure." I said, "How much salary you want?" I was like, "How much you're willing to give?" Like $33,000 a year. I said, "Sold." So I go up there and I asked him, I thought our conversation went well for the first time. Why didn't I get the job? He said, "Well, we had 5 applicants and you were number 3. And we made an offer to the first applicant, number 1 in our list. He didn't take it. And number 2 guy took the job, and this is a true story, a little bit color to it. And my boss, manager at the time, he's still a good friend. He's at 55 at the time, 55. And it's like the second guy showed up to the job with a Grateful Dead sticker on his car. And I asked him, "Is that your car?" He said, "Yes." it is my car. And I sent him right back.
He said, we're not having any of that
it's
here.
like, we're not having deadheads in my office. and that's how you got the job. I said, well, good to know.
Yeah. Got the job because I wasn't a deadhead.
Yeah. Yes.
Or you just didn't wear it on your car.
That's right.
Yeah. Taught that guy a lesson.
Yeah, but anyway, so that's how I ended up in Burlington, Vermont, and I loved the job, every single minute of it. And by 23, I was writing my first patent and the second patent for them, and I loved every single minute of it. And until then, I never got my fingernails dirty, and I was literally working with wrenches and with oil and building things, engineering things, and I loved every single minute of it.
All right. So how long did you stay there?
I was there for 4.5 years, almost 5.
And what was that business? What was the business?
It was basically chemical process engineering.
Okay.
Back then, they were a little bit too early into the market. The concept was capturing greenhouse gases and converting them into liquid carbon dioxide.
Okay.
Basically the fizz that goes into the sodas, right? So they were a little bit too early. The technology was kind of okay, not great.
Yeah.
And I was going head to head with PhDs from DuPont and Dow and Praxair and all of these guys. I was telling them I can do this, and they said, no, there's no way you can do it. It's like I was proving them wrong. I loved every single minute of it. But the technology wasn't commercially great.
Yeah.
It was good. And the company never took off. And they had an offer to basically get the company for several $1 million. And the founders thought that they were worth more. And they started negotiating, and the deal got dragged out and fizzled out. But those 5 years were very impactful and valuable. I was a good chemical engineer. I established that, and not only I learned how to run a startup company, but also how not to run a startup company.
Yeah,
because there were several mistakes made, and I could tell it was not the right direction to take. But I would voice my opinion. At one time, I was shut down. What do you know? You're a foreign student, foreign engineer here. America works differently, but some of the decisions I could see were not the right ones. And the company never took off, basically.
You said you learned how to do a startup and how not to. What are some of those life lessons that you brought into your startups?
Being a startup, they raised some money and operating things on a shoestring budget, making the most out of a dollar that you have.
Yeah.
And they were very good at it. And I learned basically, how to stretch a dollar, get things done without actually spending money. So, for example, we were building something for the first time. We would go to Derby Line, the Canadian border. There's a small workshop. Another 75-year-old dude that was running this shop, like, yeah, sure, come on over. You can build experimental stuff. I love that stuff. That guy, 75, and like I always want to tinker with new ideas. And I'm 23, and he's French Canadian, living in the U.S.
Awesome.
And so it was fun. But what I think I could see in an objective way that what the technology could do and couldn't do, and I think they were a little bit cloudy.
Rose-colored glasses, maybe.
Rose-colored glasses, and they thought their technology was worth a lot more.
Yeah.
I would tell them, these are the limitations. Yes, we got 3 patents, but it works only in a certain applications.
What are some of the lessons the bulk of the listeners of Decision Points are entrepreneurs and company founders and starters. How do you coach an entrepreneur to be careful of those blind spots?
I mentor a lot of young companies, and when you're running your own company, I compare it to like swimming in the ocean, right? When you're swimming in the ocean, you will see only about 10, 20 feet. You don't know which direction really going. You think that shore is that way, but you can't tell. So you need to be able to identify your blind spots. For me, I need to have somebody, either a board of directors, a board of advisors, or a coach, an executive coach, and tell me, hey, I tell all the folks, ask me questions. I've been doing this for 25 years. Don't tell me what to do. Ask me questions and put me out of business. And am I prepared for everything that they were thinking is going to go wrong? So I think for all of us, no matter how much experience we have, we do need that. Somebody that could look at our blind spot. Because when we are running day to day, enamored with decisions after decisions, we won't have that clarity. And we think that we do. And like I said, I've been in the same business for 25 years, still make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to have an oversight from somebody that has no agenda.
Which generally means they're not on the payroll, so to speak. Yeah. They have to be very free and clear in their counsel back to you. Okay, so you're there about 5 years. What happens next?
So 5 years, my $33,000 became $40,000 5 years later.
Right.
So,
and have you paid your dad back by now?
Yes.
Okay.
I did pay him. I was...
You pay him back 3 or 4?
Whatever I took, I think it was fortunately by the time I paid him back, it's only $2,500 because
the exchange rate.
So it worked out. 4.5 years into it, and I would get my paycheck sometimes every month, sometimes every other month, depending on what the cash situation is. Yeah. And I had, they proposed, hey, why don't we give you some equity in terms rather than some cash as sure. So by the time I built up like 4 or 5% of the company, and I was 27, 28, and I had several other job offers at 50%, 100% more than what I was making. I got great experience. And so I would tell them, hey, I got this job offer. Yes, I did look for it. It's a validation for my skill that I'm worth something. But I don't expect you to match the salary. I'm not leaving because I love this job. But at some point, like in 4.5 years, I said, Richard, it was my boss, manager, I need to do something. And I know the situation of your company, you're not gonna be able to pay the market, but at the same time, I can't live on $40,000. And so they said, okay, what are you thinking? I don't know what I'm thinking, but I want to do something.
Something needs to change.
I need to make a little bit more money.
Yeah.
So, and in the 5 years since I graduated, both my classmates from bachelor's and master's transitioned from chemical engineering into software.
Okay.
Because if you remember Y2K.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember it.
Yeah, and then web and all of that was coming up.
Yeah.
If you knew how to spell COBOL, you're a Y2K programmer. If you knew how to spell Java, you're HTML, you're a web programmer, right? And they would make $120,000 a year. These are the guys that would graduate with a B plus and a B, and I graduated with an A minus. It's like, what's wrong with this equation?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I knew a little bit about programming because I did some back in college. I said, I'm going to take a course in a local college in Burlington to see if I can get into programming as a moonlighting. So I took a course, and halfway through, I said, I'm not going to do it. This is not something that I want to do for a living. So I dropped out, and then I talked to the friends. I said, hey, how are you guys making money? And more power to you. You're all making good money, but you're all doing programming and coding. I don't see myself doing that. And one of the guys that I went to school with, he said, well, why don't you just be a consulting company? Because we all go through a consulting company, and they make a margin on us. And, we don't know how to do that consulting. And by this time I got my green card.
Yep.
So I could do anything I wanted at the time.
Yep.
So I said, he's like, yeah, I know how to do a startup. And so I can set the company up. And the guy, my friend in Atlanta said, well, why don't you do 50-50? I'll tell you how to get into this business. And you give me 50%, basically you do all the work. I'll show you the ropes. I said, sure, signed up. And I went to Richard and said, hey, this is what I'm going to do on the side. And they said, fine, there's no conflict, and go do it. You need to make more money. So then 6 months into it, I went back to him and said, Richard, listen, this is working. And
Yep.
I got 3 contractors working through me, and on paper I'm making $4,000 a month. Still on paper because it's on receivables and everything, and it's more than what you're paying me. And I really need to do this a little bit more serious consideration. Why don't I cut a deal? You pay me half the salary. I'll be here 8 hours, 9 hours a day, but half the time I'll work on my company. Half the time I'll work on you, but I'll be here from your office. If you don't like it, I'll work from my apartment. And they said, no, be here 8 hours, 9 hours a day. And so I was doing that. And a year later, I finished my first year, about one and a half million revenue and about 150,000 in bottom line.
Wow.
And I said, Richard,
Yep.
here's what I did.
Yep.
I really need to do this full time.
Yeah.
And it's got some legs. And I said, yeah, fine. And we got one request. I said, what? You are a shareholder. You're the only engineer that we ever had. Looks like you can do this from anywhere. Would you keep your company here in Burlington? That way we have access to you. I said, sure. I'm not living in India. I'm living in Burlington, Vermont. Doesn't matter where I live. I sure, I'll set it up. And I love the company. I still have some equity in the company. I'll be here. So that's how I settled in Burlington, Vermont.
How long were you there?
I lived in Burlington until 2012. I got there in 93.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a family? Do you have kids? And
I'm married and have 2 kids, 15 and 12, and boy and a girl.
yeah, what are they into? What are they up to?
Our son Rashik is at Green Hill doing in 9th grade.
Yep.
Daughter Ashvika is in 6th grade at Hockaday.
Very cool.
And my wife Lakshmi is a homemaker. Actually, she's doing masters at UT Dallas part-time.
In what?
Well, there's a story.
We love stories.
Yeah. So yeah, as the kids got older, and she decided that she wants to focus on the kids.
Yeah.
And it's like I would rather focus on the kids than do something else. So as the kids got older, when my daughter got to 9, 10 years old, they're self-sufficient of, and I'm sitting at home, and I want to do something, right? And I said, "What do you want to do?" Her line was, "Well, I had my University of Akron graduation photo, and in a gown, right? It's like always dreamed of having a graduation gown. They don't do that in India. They do give you a diploma, no gowns, no caps.
Yeah.
I always dreamed of having a gown and graduating with a gown. I said, I'll buy you a gown. He said, no, I do want to do
That's so
school.
cool, though. Yeah.
She's like, I want to study. The only goal is that.
Yeah.
I said, and she did her bachelor's in India. I said, what do you want to do? It's like MBA? I said, no, I don't. MBA is a lot of work. You're doing it for a specific reason. I want it to be useful, but MBA is a lot of work. And, you still have 2 kids and everything. So I tell you what, and she said, I don't care. I want to do master's. I said, I tell you what, I'll pick the major, you do the master's. She said, I'll pick an easy one. And she said, sure, done. So I went to UT Dallas and University of North Texas and looked at the majors. I said, innovation and entrepreneurship, that's what you're going to do. She said, sold. So I said, it's going to be useful for me. I'm going to be working with you.
Yeah.
And you also have an opportunity to take over one of the businesses when you're ready. And that's what she's doing.
No way.
That's fantastic.
She's about 3/4 of the way done.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love that story.
That's awesome.
Is she enjoying it?
She had her moments during the exams, and not so much, but she loves the camaraderie going to school.
Yeah.
And but no, she loves it. I enjoy it too, and I tease her like, "Hey, that professor, I could do a better job than him or her."
Yeah.
So,
Well, and you're probably like, that's kind of interesting content. I
Yeah,
might want
it
to
is,
audit
yeah.
that class, you know?
So there's some professors that are really good. Some of them very theoretical.
Yeah.
And
Are
she's
you
like,
taking any of the tests for her?
no, I don't. I'm very, he's like, nope, you're going to do, I'll help you, but you got to do it yourself. And
That's awesome.
So when did you guys meet?
her sister and my brother got married first. So her older sister got married to my younger brother
Okay.
through an arranged marriage.
Okay.
So,
So are they here or are they in India?
They're here.
Yeah, yeah.
My wife and her family were living in India. My brother and myself were living here.
Okay.
So through the family's arranged situation, they got married.
Yeah.
And that's where I met her, at the wedding. And so, And it wasn't an arranged marriage. It was anything but. So obviously we liked each other. And I took my parents to her parents and say, hey, my parents asked her parents. They're already in-laws.
Yeah,
right.
So, and I wanted to do it the right way. And basically said, hey, my parents, I was there. My parents like, Kishore like to marry Lakshmi. And then her dad was, there's no way. and I'm not going to do it. And because that traditionally the parents have to consent, right? That's the
Right.
Indian. So, and guess what? Lakshmi put her foot down and said, Dad, is it him or nobody? Your choice.
Courageous young lady. How old was she when she did
21.
21?
Yeah.
So she's with you this entire time in Vermont?
Yeah. She joined me in 2007.
Yeah. Why do you move from Vermont to Dallas?
Like I said, I was in Vermont for 20 years.
Yep.
And the first company that I started with my friend, that took off.
That's the consulting firm, basically. And you're doing what mostly in that firm?
Software consulting, basically, I would have software programmers on my payroll, and we work with companies like Accenture, sometimes direct clients, and usually through bigger consulting firms. So we subcontract work from them, and do the work.
Yep.
And so that grew to about 15 million in 3 years.
Yeah.
And this comes to one of the mistakes that I made. Well, it's a mistake, but it's also an opportunity.
It didn't kill you. You're still here.
Right. So a company out of offshore, out of India, calls us out of the blue and said, hey, looks like you guys are doing great and we want to buy you. And I was 97. I was 29, making $1.5 million a year. And I said, no, we don't want to sell. And they're a public company out of listed in India. They have an office in DC. And it calls me back a week later. How about 49%? This is still now. And calls me the next day. How about 51%? I said, he was the chairman of the company, public company. And he said, I tell you what, I was trying to make him go away. I said, and I knew their stock was going to double once we become part of them, because we are higher revenues and higher profitability than they were. And I said, tell you what, 3 conditions. It's number 1, 100%. Number 2, all stock, no cash, because I want to get the right. And number 3, I'll run the combined entity as a CEO.
His job?
Yeah, but he was the chairman. He was not.
Okay.
Right? Yes, so they had a CEO. I said, that means you have to replace your CEO, make me the CEO for your company and my company combined, global. They had operations in Europe, Japan, and US.
You're 29 years old?
I'm 29. And obviously my way of telling him he's going to go away. Yeah. And then he said, let me call you back. He called me the next day, literally on a Sunday afternoon, done. I'll send my team. You can send your accounting guys, do evaluation. We do it. So I did the merger and I became the CEO of a public company at 29.
Wow.
And
in Vermont?
One condition they put was you have to move to DC.
Okay.
I said, that's fine. I don't care.
Yep.
So I moved to Arlington, Virginia. That's where the headquarters was.
Okay.
We kept the Vermont office. So, and then .com happened. Yeah, and the stock really shooted high and then really came down pretty sharply. And the board, the chairman of the board, and I didn't see eye to eye on how to navigate the company out of the recession. They wanted to lay a bunch of people off and protect the bottom line and protect the share price. And I said, that's not going to work. And it's coming back, but I need to have core team. We can do some layoffs, but essentially they fired me from my own company. So, and 2 years into the gig and I was out on the street, I have nothing to do. So it's like, what the heck am I going to do?
Yep.
So I moved back to Vermont. And the way my contracts with the public company worked and everything was that there would be no non-compete because they fired me.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, it's a little bit of my ego kicked in, and I told the chairman, listen, your strategy is not going to work, and our company is going to go down like this, and I'm going to show you how my strategy is going to work. and I don't have non-compete. And listen, my word to you is I'm not going to touch any of your clients, my clients in this company, any of your employees. And there's enough opportunity for everybody there. I'm going to show you within 18 months that I'm going to meet you in revenues because you're going to go down like this and I'm going to go up like this. He said, there's no way in the world you can do that. I said, well, there's only one way to do it, one way to find out. But I failed. It took me 21 months. And the company, 2 years later, they basically shut everything down. In the 6 months after that, they bought all my stock back and paid me cash. So I got
you got some liquidity.
Yeah, I got liquidity and put the money away and used the company. So, and that's the company I started in 2003, and I still own and run it now.
Okay. What are life lessons you take out of, you say it was a mistake and you say it really wasn't. What are lessons? Again, entrepreneurs, business owners are faced with these conversations all the time. When do I sell? How do I sell? Should I sell? Walk us through some of your thought process. Maybe, again, part of this podcast is, can your scar tissue save someone else some of that pain? Life, there just will be trouble, right? But coach us up around that season of your life.
I wasn't in YPO.
Okay.
That was, I should have been. I was clearly, should have been. And I didn't have when I did the transaction, I was flying high. I was like 29.
Yep.
And, invincible and nothing will go wrong. And I didn't have an advisor, M&A advisor. So I should have taken some cash at closing. They said, name your cash. And I didn't. Mm-hmm. And like, what am I going to do with all the cash?
Yep.
So
29 years old.
Yeah, right. So, and then should have had an advisor. And, but, when I got literally kicked out of the company, I was at a crossroads. Mm-hmm. and I was second guessing myself. All the last 5 years of success, was it a fluke? Did I happen to be at the right time, right place? And was it really talent? Did I have in me to be a true entrepreneur and a businessman?
Isn't that crazy? All the success you had, but you get your butt beat one time and you're like, am I really that talented or gifted or hardworking or whatever?
Yeah, your self-esteem, self-confidence takes a hit, especially when you get fired, no matter how successful successful you are. So, and I was really contemplating, I got some money in the bank. Should I go back to, I knew I was one heck of a chemical engineer.
Yeah.
And
Crazy.
I wasn't sure whether I was equally good entrepreneur. So should I go back to chemical engineering and get a job? And at least play safe, and or should I try it again? So I was in that dilemma for 4, 5, 6 months. It's funny when you were CEO of a public company, how much attention, respect you get.
Yep.
And the moment you come off that seat, it's day and night. Mm-hmm. The people that would wait for you to talk to them,
take your phone call,
would not even take my phone call.
Correct.
And there was one moment.
The power of that position.
Yes. And people respect the position that you're in, not you. So there were a couple of moments that kind of made a pivot. And I was in a relationship with Lakshmi at the time, and I was talking to her, and I was saying, I think I'm going to get into another partnership, and she made a comment, and she's still young, and made a comment like, you just came out of a partnership that didn't work well. Why would you want to go into partnership again? I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And the one thing she said, she didn't remember, she still today says she didn't remember saying that. She said one line, I have full confidence in you, go by yourself. And she was in India, and I was in Virginia at 10 o'clock in the night. And the next morning, I drove to Richmond, Virginia from Arlington, registered my company in Virginia. And so I needed that from somebody close, like, I got full confidence in you, just go do it.
Isn't that incredible? The power of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't married. You were.
Yeah, I wasn't married at the time. Yeah, so.
Incredible. Walk us through that conversation in the boardroom, I'm assuming, when you got fired.
It wasn't a straight conversation, things in India. All the board members were in their 60s and 70s, and I was 31, 32, and I said, here's my plan. And it takes us probably 12 to 18 months. Yes, we're going to go through a dip. We need to keep the talent, and it's going to come back up. And by the way, I went to India for the board meeting. The decision was already made, but the board meeting was like, we're going to discuss the strategy.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So come to find out, and no matter what I present or what I said, it was kind of going in deaf ears, and they already picked an alternate and said, okay, that's fine. And they said, well, it wasn't a firing. I had a 2-year contract, and until a month before that, if everything was going as if everything is going to go through for another 2-3 years, but we're not going to renew your employment agreement. And at that moment, the entire thing was cut off. I mean, by the time from there to my hotel room, I didn't have access to email. Yeah, so from my own company that I built.
Correct.
Right? So kind of a Steve Jobs story, but obviously it's a different level. But
pain's the same, the struggle's the same, no matter what the zeros are or whatever else. So
it was definitely a gut-wrenching moment to not only to get pretty much fired from your own company, right? And it took me about 4 or 5 months to come out of it.
One of the things we talk a lot about on the podcast is just the how much of our identity and our persona is wrapped up in our business. And when you birth something from scratch and you build it and you make all the sacrifices that you have to make to get a company off the ground, and then all of a sudden, and all day, every day, you're thinking about it, and your ecosystem is all intertwined, and you make phone calls and people pick up the phone, and you've got your whole persona is wrapped up, and then it goes away, and then you're faced with this question of who am I? What am I capable of? Is that the only time in your career you've sort of gone through that, or have there been other times where you?
There was there was one more moment when I started the company after my pep talk that I got.
Yeah.
So, and I reached out to some of the partners that I had at my previous company. I was not going to touch employees and clients, and there was a company here in Dallas, and they were about at the time about half the size of my other company. They had 300 employees. We had about 450, 500. And so I was, at one point, I was bidding to buy the company as a part of the public company. The guy was based in Dallas. I was in Vermont. And I called him, hey, I'd like to partner with my new company. And this was the guy that was begging me to buy his company, and said, well, let me pass you on to my assistant, and you can coordinate with her. And he wouldn't even talk to me.
Wow.
And so I said, all right, great. And I got 300 people, employees, and he was kind of bragging. He's like, you're a little guy now. And so that became another challenge I took up on myself. You have 300 people. That's my goal. In 2 years, I want to be that size. And so it was a shutdown, completely shut me off. And all right, I want to be your size. And so that I took that as a challenge.
Yeah.
And so basically my second chapter in entrepreneurship was built on challenges and people shutting me off and shutting me down. Said, all right, I want to be like that. So I guess what I walk away is when you have a goal, set yourself a goal, and when you're truly an entrepreneur, you'll get there. Half the time I see a lot of the early stage companies and entrepreneurs, they don't really have well-defined goals. And I think that's half the battle. Get a realistic goal and come up with the path. And no matter how much thinking, how much planning we do, the path will not be the same path that we planned. It'll be different. But we may not reach the goal. But having that clarity, that's where I'm going. And no matter what happens, that's where I'm headed towards. And it's really important. That's what I set myself very clear goals in business. And I set myself in the next 2 years, I want to be out of my operations. I want to do more strategic role, not day-to-day operations, right? So, and I'm working towards that.
Yeah.
It's important for us to have, as an entrepreneur, that clarity. And people around us, whether the board or the executive coach or whoever, they all have to help us towards that goal.
What have been your goals for your companies? Have they been revenue? Have they been, what have they been? What are your goals for your current company?
One more story. I know you love
I love stories.
So I was in Vermont. The second company I started that became, then I started digital transformation company in 2012, and that was when our daughter was born. And at that time, I was working really 60, 70 hours a week because company was growing like this. And there are two instances. I was in a YPO retreat, and with my forum group, there was 8 of us, and it's a 2-day retreat. There was one gentleman who was CEO of a big company, multi-billion-dollar company. So we take a break after 4-hour session, and I was just jumping into my BlackBerry, checking my emails. Right, I'm doing day-to-day stuff. And my fellow forum member, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, goes to the pool, kicks his feet up, and gets the sun. I said, "Dude, what are you doing?" I said, "We just had a break after 4 hours. Don't you have anything to do?" Like, "No, I delegate." So until then, it didn't have the concept of delegation as a true entrepreneur. Like, you want to do everything. You want to be in the middle of it. You want to answer every single email. That's how I was working 60, 70 hours a day. I was getting things done, but I was burning myself. Mm-hmm. I said, "Hey, can I call you after the retreat and learn from you how to delegate?" And she said, "Sure, give me a call." And it was just one call. It was 15 minutes, 20 minutes, do this. And then right after that, a daughter was born, right? So we were at the hospital, and I brought her daughter into our home along with my wife and son. Son was 3. And I told my wife and said, in 6 months, I want to come down to 40-hour work week, no matter what comes. She said, "Why?" I said, "I have 2 kids. I don't want to work 60, 70 hours a week, and I want to spend time with them. And number 2 is, that's the right thing to do because I don't want to burn myself." Mm-hmm. So it took me 6 months, and I went to the office next morning. I said, one of our operations lady, I said, "Anytime you see me in the office after 5:30, you call me out." And sure enough, she would call me and said, "Go home." So it took me 6 months to set up a delegation structure, and so that you got to let go. Right? Mm-hmm. I can't do everything. I don't want to do everything. That's the only way to grow. You got to let people make the mistakes. Be okay with the mistakes that other people make. And so that was June, July of 2012. And I've been sticking to 40-hour work weeks.
Do you know how difficult that second thing you just said is for, what did he say? Be okay with
other people's mistakes.
Other people's mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that's so much the crux of delegation.
Yeah.
Your own mistakes, I'll just fix it, work harder, do whatever. It's okay with other people's mistakes.
Yeah. The other thing that I think happens with that decision is all of a sudden you're able to elevate to a different level of thinking because you're not constantly pulled down into the sort of the transactional detail of whatever your operating business is, where, we can be effective there because we can solve problems and we can execute and we can get things done. But it's that sort of higher level thinking, and you almost have to separate yourself from that day-to-day, activity, kinetic, frenetic activity that happens to be able to think big picture and strategically.
You have to have margin to do that.
Yeah.
And if you're filling your 40 or 70 hours if you don't have a little bit of boredom, so to speak, in there, directed right, you don't have the margin to do exactly what you're talking about.
You got to think.
Exactly.
You got to think.
Kishore, this is incredible. What do you take away from that 15-minute phone call?
So basically that. It's like, hey, you have to be intentional about it.
Okay.
When you delegate, you have to be, and you got to be willing to take the hits. That means you know how to do it. And now you have to train the people around you, approaching the same level as you are. In that process, they're going to make mistakes. And it's not them making mistakes, it's you not training them well.
And that's accountability. That's huge
Yeah,
too.
yeah, absolutely.
So the way the path I followed was, we at the time, it's like everybody was reporting to me. Even though I was $30-40 million company, I was the center of everything. I put a little bit of a structure. I was like, not everybody's going to report to me. There was pushback. A couple of people left. I said, nope, we want to report only to Kishore. That's the way always done from day one. And I said, yeah, I'm sorry, but we're going to change things. Right? So, and now the next thing I did was, for all the reports, all right, from tomorrow, you're going to start making decisions. And here's the process we're going to follow. If you have a question, come to me. With the way you always have done, you come to me, Kishore, what's this, what's that? I had the answers because I built the company from ground up. And so next time you come to me, based on all the decisions that I made, come to me with 3 possible answers. What would Kishore do? A, B, C. And then if the answer is not one of them, I'll tell you why it's not there. If it's there, then I'll tell you this one to pick. Month later, come back with 2 answers, not 3. And after 3 months, 4 months later, come back with 1 answer. They never came back with 1 answer. They did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's true. In that process, I knew who belonged on the bus and who didn't.
Whether that friend told you that or that instinctively, you were vetting who was qualified to lead these new divisions or whatever it was. 100%. So many directions, and just for sake of some time, one thing I want to address real quick. You've exited a couple of times. How coach up someone listening right now who owns a company? How should they be preparing for an exit? What are 3, 4, 5 things you would say, absolutely be doing this or stop doing this?
Number one thing is keep the books very clean, right? So, I'm in the middle of an acquisition now. The books are great, and the add backs were very minimal, and the due diligence was very clear. That's the biggest hurdle. If the books are messy, the buyers will start discounting or walk away, and your kitchen has to be clean. And number 2 is give the vision, not what you want it to do. Understand who the buyer is and what can they do with this company. Not, hey, you're going to get your return in 5 years, 3 years, 4 years. Give the pie in the sky vision with your capability, a buyer's capability, with our infrastructure, what we created, double it in a year, 2 years. And that's typically when I acquire companies, I look for that opportunity. I don't mind paying a premium. So that means if you're a seller, you're getting a premium, and you put that strategy together. Don't leave to the buyer like, it's my company, do whatever you want to do. No, give that strategy. And what you were not able to do, the 2 companies that I acquired in the last few years were, the owners became the bottleneck. They were more like a lifestyle company. That means they're dependent on the income every year. They were not able to put money into the company to grow. That's a great opportunity if you're a bigger company, if you have some cash. And number 2 was, this other company came to us and said, hey, we took the company from 0 to 30 million in 5 years. We don't know how to do it any bigger than that. We've been kind of spinning our wheels. It's a perfect. That I've done. Yeah, I can help you. I've done that before. And as long as you're willing to stay and do the same thing, so that's important. And from a seller perspective, whether you get 5x or 6x or how do you multiply the multiplier by 20-30% is, those are the 2-3 things, and it's important.
Very helpful. Kishore, thank you. Thoroughly enjoyed this and learned a ton.
Great storyteller.
Yeah.
Unbelievable storyteller. I love that. And I love the time spending with you. So, and kudos to your wife. Have you told her how much she did for you with that comment? Does she know that?
Oh yeah, she claims she.
She owns it.
I said that. I said, yeah, you did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You get all the credit. Way to cheer him on. Thank you very much, Kishore. Thanks for joining us on Decision Points. Hope y'all have a great rest of the day.